everybody has a background in ToC. And maybe all of you would agree with me that ToC is one of the most difficult subjects in result-based management evaluation, right? But anyway, before we start, I would like to tell you this. In many conferences or workshops that I attended, the conductor would always say, put away your biases. Put away your mindset. No, I'm not going to tell you that. It's easier said than done. Our mindset, our biases will be always there. But our request is, let's try to have an open mind. Because we all know in evaluation, this is an emerging field. There are a lot of nuances, a lot of debates, a lot of arguments. We don't see each other in many, many areas, many teaching. And I think we could arrive at that level later on, to be integrated, speaking of common language. And I think this is part of that. And of course, everyone knows it's a tough subject. There are a lot of questions. If you want to raise questions, argument, please do so, but don't ask me questions that I could not answer. Let's answer it. Let's answer it. And maybe many of you have questions. The toughest question that you could get about ToC. By the way, this workshop is not gonna solve all those problems or all those arguments. We will try to present logical counter-argument that would make sense, maybe. Okay. So why ToC? This ToC, by the way, when did it start? So it's a buzzword right now. Many people in MME, of course, most of us, all of us, would agree that this is one of the most important elements of evaluation. It is inherent in all interventions. Although evaluation practitioners wouldn't know that there is, this is inherent, it's always there. Just like in the design of the building. You don't know that you have the concept, but you're coming up with the design itself without that concept at all. But it's there, it's always there. That's what I think about ToC. So it came from the results agenda that we have, the results-based management that we applied in M&E, in development evaluation. It's very complicated, confusing. Various organizations, they have their own differences, so different definitions. And maybe you have your own. How do you define ToC? Could we come up with a unified definition, technical definition that we could understand each other? It's a bit wonderful that the evaluation practice or circle is still moving on despite so many disagreements about using paradigm wars, quals and quants and everything. And I think if we focus on ToC, that's really very confusing. Not so many people understand how it is. I attended one conference, a national conference back home, and the main question asked during the plenary was, what is theory of change? How do you do that? Nobody was able to answer that way. Not so much of a complete answer. Many tried, but we ended up confused. So, there, according to literature, so we're inclined to look at the literature. According to the literature, we have this. Yu Chan, Rossi, Patton, and of course you know Patton very well, Carroll. Around 1990s, according to the literature, started. They cited it, but not necessarily directly mentioning about ToC, but the gist of the ToC study there. And then Carroll popularized it according to the literature in her 1995 book. This one, she mentioned about the ToC. A theory of how and why an initiative works. Okay. By the way, you will be able to get a copy of my e-file later on, and you would, I assure you that there are always acknowledgement, attribution of the source, and that you could really look into it. Now, there are criticisms. Maybe we could ask some of you, what criticism do you know about ToC argument? The toughest that you could get. Actually, I put in there. Many practitioners, especially advanced practitioners, they start believing that ToC is really very complicated. It's not. It does not work that way. It's not linear. It's not linear. Well, that's true. It's very complicated. So, do we have to throw it away? And what's the alternative? If we have time, we could focus on that and show you a very logical counter-argument about that. The linearity of the ToC model that we do against the complexity of the real-world phenomenon. We could have time later on in the discussion. Okay. So the focus of this workshop is not actually to focus on the counter-arguments. Our focus is to work on ToC model because this is part of the practice. Although we don't see it in our evaluation reports. Have you seen any ToC model in the evaluation report? We don't do that actually. It's just like when you are submitting design of this building to a client. You don't put the concept there because you're just submitting the plan. But it's always there. That's the ToC, the concept of the design. And that's ToC in our field. So not primarily overcoming controversies or arguments, but let's go and consider some valid responses. Counter-arguments that make sense, maybe. And maybe you could add some more as we go along. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have some question, provided that we don't make it very long because we have a lot of things to do. Actually, this topic should be done in a matter of months. And we compress it. Well, let's put this premise. ToC is a concept, a theory. That's why theory of change. What is theory? Well, theory is not a fact. We have to prove it, right? But hypothesis is something that we test. Theory is something that we prove. Okay? So we look at the nature of intervention. What is intervention? Anything that we do, the initiative or programs or projects or policies, those are intervention. And the nature of intervention is that we are after change. I would say that intervention is equal to change. Why? Because when we intervene, we want to change the status or the state of things to something better always. We desire a change to change it to something better. That's the intervention logic. And change could be, of course, positive and negative. And there's some other complication, maybe synergies, some other else, and so on. But we look at positive, we look at the negative, and we desire the positive, right? If we could do it the way we would like it to be, all change could be positive. Our goal, the outcome or the results that we targeted should be positive. And we agree that this is measurable. So these are the premises that we could bank on when we consider ToC. I have here a very good diagram. I made it myself, and I know you like the picture. Very nice picture. Those are the sources. If you look at policy, program, project, or even organizational initiative, well, we only do not deal with program, policy, or projects. In everyday lives in our organization, we do day-to-day activities, the initiative, and we have some kind of goal. Even it's not a very particular project. So we have some kind of goal or mission. So if I were to use the sample, a project, for example, is time-bound. You have the start, you have the end, and you have the target. If you miss the target, that means it's a failure. Just like the Columbia Space Shuttle. It's programmed. The formula is there. You know the path, the orbit. So you have to go another pathway. If you miss it, something like that, that's failure. That's how we look at it in development evaluation. If we could see the variant, for example, there, we are far away from the path. If we could do it that way, the better maybe in evaluation. But we would like to emphasize that there is always a time essence. You have the start, you have the target, the policy, programs. That we do evaluation here, we do evaluation here, maybe Look at the evaluation before. You have the prospective, you have the formative, and you have the summative evaluation, the different types of evaluation. And we need ToC later on. How is intervention designed? About strategic plan. How is success of intervention measured? That would be our part, the M&E. Now, if you look at this Columbia Space Shuttle, maybe we could be certain that these people behind it, they will know whether the space shuttle is traveling according to fact or how far it is. So, to emphasize, all interventions have a theory. Would you agree with me? Could we think of an intervention that does not have a theory or the logic of intervention? Oh, so far, maybe we could not think of something that does not have a logic of its own. The powerful change. So it is the logic of intervention. Theory of change, or ToC, equals logic of intervention. This is where the confusion rests actually, later on. You will see. Many people interchange ToC with ToC model or logic model. Let's put the boundary later on. ToC is a bit different from ToC model. The ToC is that inherent one, and we model that ToC, we come up with a model. That's why we have the logic model equivalent to the ToC model. So there, let's see the results-based approach, because there are many practices. I decided to show this to you because, you see, one of the problems, confusion, in the practice of ToC related to RBM and E is that about this. If you do a meta-evaluation of evaluations done by many practitioners, you would notice many practitioners still professing to be doing RBM and E, but they include outputs as results. That's a big problem based on this principle. And we're going to talk about that. More often than not, if you look at evaluation works done by many right now, they include still output with the results. There's no problem with that, but if you would really look at the principle RB&E, well, that would pose a problem later on when you do the indicators and the design. Okay. So, of course, I think many of you are familiar with this. I'm inclined to classify this into effects, outcomes, and impacts. Many people would just say outcomes or impact. Now, based on the premise that we have a while ago, the time essence of the project, or the policy, you have the start, you have the end. Of course, when you started, early on there must be change. At the middle, maybe around the middle there must be change, and then the achievement of the goal later on. That's why I'm inclined to specify that there would be effect. How do we illustrate that? What we are doing right now is an intervention. You would agree with me. This is a workshop. Actually, a training, capacity building in M&E. At the end of this workshop, I think many of us, all of us would learn, something would change in our mind. It would raise our awareness maybe, it would add up to knowledge, it may influence our action, our attitude. Right after you leave this world, that would be an effect. But I would like to emphasize it. Many people also interchange this. They are confused with results and outcomes, right? Because these are actually almost the same. Even outputs are actually results. But that's confusing, right? Now we are talking here of results-based management. When we talk of the results-based management principle, we have to do some kind of segregation, understanding that we should look at this short-term, intermediate, and long-term, and we segregate the output, because that's the principle that we espouse, or we subscribe to, Okay. Now, please take note, results-based approach is altogether, right? The traditional, we look only at the output. That we deliver this, we deliver the bridge, we deliver the school, we deliver the graduates, and that's it. But now, because of the results-based approach, and results could be outcomes depending on the context. But if we look at the time essence, it would be better to consider it under effects, under outcomes, that and other impacts. That's a proposition based on the argument, based on the logical essence of it. And maybe some of you would contradict, perhaps you have your own reasoning. Please feel free to raise that. Theory of change links outputs to results, right? Outputs are deliverables, products of activities. And again, now, a definition of results or outcomes that make this different from outputs is this. This involves change of behavior, change to, or the existence of an enabling environment that support the change. That's how we look at it in results-based management principles. Such that when we look at the output, it's the deliverable. The more that give benefits are the outcomes or the results, not necessarily the output. How do we exemplify that? Okay, we build a bridge, we build a school, we graduate students, we train people. The number of trained people are many, but how sure are we that they would act, change, practice their skill so that they would achieve the goal? Meaning that even if we implement the program and we deliver the output, it does not necessarily mean we achieve our goal. That's why that's the results-based management principle applied in MNE. And the national goal, of course, are these numbers. The clearer, the better. This is where the confusion rests, one of the confusions. Fear of change is not equal to logic models, the way I look at it. Why? Because fear of change is the logic of intervention. If you say theory of change model, I think they would be. Yeah, they would be the same. And I think there's one small, perhaps semantic difference that would really make a clearer understanding. If you read many literature, many books, for example, about MNE, this is where the confusion rests. Consider logic model as equal to theory of change. There's nothing wrong about that, but when we go deeper into this, understanding the principle, that would make a difference. Yes, Dennis.
To me, the biggest difference is that with the theory of change, you want to explain how and why change occurs.
Yeah.
And when you have your logic model, you're not so much interested in the why.
Mm-hmm.
You're more interested in the components that are part of your model than you're just showing a relationship.
Yeah. Because this is a model. And the model is the start of it. We model the knowledge because there's this phenomenon in intervention. The intervention is about change. We want to achieve this change. The phenomenon is that how this intervention would lead to that change. So, in doing the modeling, we get that knowledge, we get a chunk of that phenomenon and model it. And we know what's about model, right? I love models. Not the live one, but the model itself. The knowledge, you model it. And the basic prerequisite in modeling is it should be very simple, it should be understood, it should make sense, it should be logical. That's why we call it a model. When I was doing my PhD, making a decision support system, expert system, actually I had difficulty understanding how models should work. We did a lot of modeling, encapsulating, articulating ideas into a model, something like that. And that makes sense. Models should be simple. That would drive the lesson home to the person. It should not be very complicated. It should not be very complex at all, which is only for a showy, aesthetic, something like that we don't need. It should make sense, it should be logical. should not be contradicting. And that's the theory of change model. But theory of change is different from the model itself. The model is what? The knowledge model. We represent the theory using the model because it's here. Yes, ma'am, you're in the philosophy department. I know. You could make a good comment about that. That's the theory, something that is abstract, right? That's abstract. For example, we know that this is one, right? Nothing else. It's not two. How come? Because that's part of our tradition. We understand this one. But for example, if you were a Chinese and well, let me see. This is three in Chinese. When you make it two, that's a bush or bush. When you make it three, that's already a forest. Kind of model it, right? Photograph it in Chinese. And let me see. I think we don't need it yet. I have a tree, and I put something like this. I'm not good at Chinese. I'm not Chinese. I could just read Japanese because I studied in Japan. I learned the Japanese way, and it's also Chinese. This means your holiday. Why? This means your holiday. A person leaning on the tree, for example. A person, okay, you have the hut, and then something, okay. That's the tree. This is the person for Chinese. We model, and we understand each other. And I think we could arrive at that level here in our evaluation practice, that we could unify our thoughts, representing ideas, and we understand each other. The Chinese have a number of pictographics like this, thousands of them. Before you become conversant in Chinese, you must understand or learn around 15 characters. And characters, there are characters that have 64 strokes, by the way. Different from your letter A or B. Now, that's about modeling. Modeling of the knowledge. So here in our logic model, that's it, or in theory of change model, we have that knowledge and we model it, we visualize it, we articulate it. And that's the key. There. We get a chunk of the problem and model it. What is the problem? It could be the phenomenon. It could be the complex instance. It could be the intellectual puzzle. That's why I'm always saying evaluation is a higher form of research. If you're not doing research, you cannot do research, you cannot do evaluation. It's more of research. Dealing with the phenomenon, complex instance, intellectual puzzle. We get a chunk of it, we model it. It aids understanding better, and the simpler the better. And I would say there should be consistency, coherence in the way we articulate the theory of change. Later on you will see, there are a lot of examples that I will show. I'm going to show you actual evaluation reports that I did. And you would be surprised to see the incoherence, the contradictions in the way the TLC or even the results frameworks are articulated. And that may become confusion. Okay? Inconsistency or contradiction kills logic. It spawns confusion. Do you have any questions so far? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Because for me, a model is something which is based on a theoretical framework and then have some experience piloting maybe, and then. So do you have also in your what do you mean by model that there are many parts in it? What do you include in that? It's not only theory.
Yeah, that's always brilliant. It's based on our personal experiences. The Chinese, when they modeled it and came up with the concept, with this concept with it, based on experience, they relied on the tree and that's it. They were able to encapsulate that in a visual representation. So it includes experience, not only theory.
Do you think that it's also, is it also context-based?
Yes, it should be context-based.
Yes, because I think that maybe theory of change is also somehow context-based.
That's
And
right,
that's why
exactly.
you have to model it somehow on the relation to what you are doing,
Yeah, that's
what you're
right.
evaluating.
Context is always the name of the game, actually, in fact. Yes, you have another question there? Shall we go on? Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm hearing logic model and theory of change model, and I'm wondering where is the relationship between logical framework?
Yeah, that's it, logical framework. Well, going at the history of logical framework was popularized by the USA, right? But they dropped it. Logical framework, actually, if you look at the logical framework right now, there is some kind of, you see, migration or blending. They also adopt the theory of change. I'm going to show you later on. But logical framework is a kind of, you see, an approach that you use in evaluation, and part of it as a kind of a management strategy. But even if you're using logical framework, inherent is the theory of change, because that's intervention. That's later, yes, ma'am.
Maybe clarification will be that the logical framework, maybe, but it's mainly used in projects.
Yeah,
And
being
but
used in
the-
project by GISA, JICA right now, even right now.
Yeah, but the theory of change go farther away from the project. It's a long, longer
You're not
vision.
using it? I'm going to show you some examples used by JICA in the Philippines and in Asia that integrated the concept of ToC later on. Some of the examples in your PowerPoint. Well, we could see some kind of merging of knowledge, actually. Many practitioners in the past, traditionally M&E practitioners, they adopted the idea, the principle of RBM and E. And if you would look at evaluation reports right now, you could see adaptations, merging, becoming hybrid. If you have time, you could do a sit with Bart Parade. This topic is always about the true RBM and E. The true RBM and E. What is the true RBM and E? Many practitioners right now, we have to admit it, we gain knowledge through reading and interaction with everybody. Not necessarily a formal education or results-based M&E. And that's okay. And we adopt the knowledge that we could see in our work. Little by little, there is kind of leveling up. But still, we could see imperfections. Some of the samples that I'm going to show you are that.
Is it possible to say, do I understand correctly that if I think logic model, that maybe I say some people go to therapy and consequences are that they feel better. But if I think theory change, do I need to say that this kind of ingredients in the therapy, this kind of discussion styles makes it better? Does it mean that I open what kind of therapy it should be? I mean that if I say logic model, is it so that I said, okay, people go to, there is therapy, output, and results are here, the client feels better.
Mhm.
But if I say what is theory of change, do I say that, okay, this kind of, for example, communication styles of therapist, if therapist discuss this and that way, use this kind of discussion, so do I open and what it should happen inside here in therapy, and is it that the theory?
Yeah, I could see your point. I
Yeah.
could see your point. There are so many complications along the way. That's why many people are saying counter argumentally that it's complicated, complex. It's not. It does not work that way, right? Many people would say. So in your example, okay. Well, theory of change. Let me answer that for a while, madam. In result-based management ToC, let's start it there. We have the resources, right? Up to the impacts or the results that you want. The theory of change rests on this, that this from this would bring you to that. From the start up to this, that is your theory. In interventions, there are a lot of theories of change that you could derive. Not only one. Depending on your theory, this is a theory. Many of us have done thesis anyway, right? Thesis is all about theory, something that you advance as a researcher. that you want to marshal the data, the evidence that you have, and prove, oh, this is it. This is the way I want you to understand it. That's my theory. In any intervention, even in this example that you mentioned, there could be a lot of theories how this particular object of target could be obtained. And the strength and logical coherence of the theory would do a lot when you do the evaluation. That's why we look at the logic of it, the causal pathway. Is it logical? Would it really be? For example, in our training right now, would it be logical to say that after this, you raise your awareness? Who would say no? Maybe the one who is asleep, right? But that's logical. After this, you raise your awareness that theory of change is very difficult. Theory of change is something like this. We would say very complicated. It's not linear. It doesn't work that way. Who would disagree with that? So even it's very complicated, there are ways, there are dimensions that it is linear, the way it acts. Did I answer your question? You have some more? Yes, please.
Yes, I'm just wondering as you're talking about how the theory of change is written in stone. I mean, to what extent is it written in stone? And because it's an assumption, it's a logical assumption that we're trying to make when we are.
To what extent it is?
Written in stone. It's like it's
Written in stone.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I could see your point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when could
We always review theory of change. It still applies, right? Although when we do our evaluation, we establish the outcome. We normally do not change the outcome or the result, but the theory of change. We do replace indicators, but outcomes, it's just like changing the name, the rule of the game, and then at the middle of the game, if we change the target. So it involves maybe the lousiness or the soundness of your design. That's why we do, when we understand this very well, our skills are developed in M&E, we are better policy makers, policy designers and program designers. The strategic planning level that we do. Right? So it's not cast in stone, the theory of change. In a way that we have to review that later on, depending on the time span or the time essence of the project. But it would speak very well about the lousiness and soundness of your strategic plan. If you were not able to really target what it should be. That's why that's the issue of ToC. We formulate the ToC, which is the best ToC that we can get. Yes, ma'am.
When you think that theory of change, how do you relate it to the concept of the expectations?
Expectations.
Evaluators are using, yes.
Expectations of the evaluation.
Yes, yeah.
Expectations. There are a lot of words. Assumptions, right?
Yes, meaning
Assumptions,
assumption
right?
and expectation.
One time in Africa, I think there was this plenary conference about this. Someone presenting about this assumption. You know, I disagree putting assumptions in your logic model already. It has changed model. Sometimes you could see very, you see, I would say funny assumptions put in there, just for the sake of aesthetics, making the logic model or the theory of change model very presentable. Well, that's our inclination in our research, you see, to make it more academically respectable. We are in education. That's it. Originality, something like that. You put aesthetics, assumption that the community leaders would cooperate, something like that. There is no supranatural calamities. Well, to me that's a kind of a funny thing. If there is supernatural calamities, even the evaluators are gone. Please take note of that. Not only your ToC, even you would be gone. Now, what I want to emphasize is this is a theory that you are advancing. It encompasses all the assumptions, the main assumptions that you have, that from the resources up to the goal. That's your main assumption. That's the assumption. Why do you have to do some more assumptions here? That's carried already. That's my point. Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through the project cycle in relation to what you are discussing. I don't know at what exact point I need to apply this theory of change looking at the project cycle.
Project cycle management. We have the illustration later.
So do I do it at the beginning, the middle, and the end?
Well, it depends, ma'am, madam context a while ago, right? Well, we are here. We are program managers, we are policy makers, we are in government. We look at how we design policies, right? How do we design policies? How do we design programs? We do strategic planning, right? We have the vision, mission, goal, something like that. And from that vision, mission, goal, we get the outcomes or the results. That will be the target, right? Now in PCM, you have a 6, right? Basically 6 components or segments where you do project cycle management. That's why project cycle. You manage the cycle, right? So if the project is well designed with a clear TOC, it would be better, but it would be managed better, right? That's where you have to do it during the strategic planning. And you could manage very well.
We're trying to point at the, I'm looking at it. So if I have put it like at the planning stage, I can also monitor my theory of change, how it is.
If it works,
Yeah, I can do that.
That's why monitoring and evaluation kind of learning. Here, in the project cycle management, you have the identification of the problem or the formulation of the problem, after this, the evaluation, and then it feeds back to this. So you're able to see during the monitoring and evaluation whether the program is lousy or sound and it works. But then, when you redo the program later on, how do you say that in the terminologies that we have? We upscale, something like that. We repeat the problem or make it bigger, something like that. A lot of terminologies. So it's very useful in project cycle management, PCM. But it's a different thing actually. It's a TOC, the identification, drawing, derivation, formulation, regulation. It's a different thing. It's a component of the PCM. Rests inherently in any program, any policy. That's it. And we model it. We come up with theory of change model. Okay? Okay, related schools of thought, sorry, concepts. Here is the LogFrame, madam. It's the LogFrame, basically. The LogFrame adopted by many agencies right now. You have the overall objective, purpose, results, activities. And then you have this column divided normally by this, 4. Yeah, 4. What makes it difficult is that many people would say it's locked. It needs some more details. And please look at the terminology. Objectives, purpose, results, and activities. When you write your objectives in your research or a thesis, which is higher, your objectives or your purpose? Right? So it kind of a contradiction, but maybe they are using a different language in the LogFrame analysis or LFM. We have LF, we have LFA, we have LFM. LogFrame analysis or LogFrame approach, LogFrame matrix, and then LogFrame. That's things that are being used. But basically, this is the nature of LF. You have the objectives, purpose, result. To me, it would have been better if this one is on the higher level. Research-wise, thinking research-wise. Because your purpose is, I think, higher than objective. If you look at how you do your research, for example, in your thesis, yes, our friend who is doing PhD, right? When you identified your research problem, perhaps you could come up with some problems, dividing it to be manageable. Your sub-problems or the problem would lead to your objectives, and your objectives would lead to your data. Because you do these strategies or tactics underneath. But here in this LogFrame, please note, the objective is higher than the purpose, and actually equivalent to the impact, so to speak. Okay, this is the LFM, the matrix. I just put it in words, but there must be something like that. It's a visual 4x4. Please take note of the visual aspect. Kaya that's why it's model. Sorry, sometimes I speak Tagalog. project purpose, results, activities, assumptions, and preconditions in the first and fourth column. And then you have the second and third columns, specify objectives, mentioned in first column, and then you have the indicators and it's as easy as that in the model. You have the indicator. You have the means of verification. This one is another. This LFM, this one is another. This is an Apple problem in Transparency International, very different organization. Please take note. It's not a service delivery organization, more on advocacy. It's very hard to determine TLC, it's very hard to decide evaluation. Maybe some of your organization may be like this. Okay, and talking about the LogFrame, please take note of the format or the nature of the LogFrame of TI. Okay? You have the needs, you have the purpose, and the indicator, so they call it the LogFrame. Now what I'm trying to drive home to you is that the variations by which organization apply the idea within the LogFrame. This one is JICA, also LogFrame. You have the narrative summary, which is now here, overall impact. You have the purpose, you have the output. This is a revised one. Currently, they did away with the objective. It's already good. It's a good development, right? And then they have this is the LogFrame 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1, 4, visual. That is LF. Only lately, actually, until this evening, I am locked in a debate with many practitioners about this. Because about the ToC put in a LogFrame format, tabular, some would not agree that why do you use the LogFrame approach still using ToC? No, it's different. We just use the tabular form, but it's not the LogFrame. This is the LogFrame that we use in evaluation, that we use in as a management strategy. It's a very much different if we use the ToC, put it in the table. It's not a LogFrame itself. Otherwise, if you're familiar with SWOT, SWOT, the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat, and put it on the tabular, would it be again LogFrame? No. But still in the tabular. So we could use ToC model using a tabular form, which looks like a LogFrame, but actually not a LogFrame. Now what I want you to see is this. Intended positive effect or impact, the desired one, the goal. The project purpose or the outcome. Impact, outcome, direct effects. Now, JICA is not inclined to specify the effects or the short term. It's included already here. Okay? But JICA still consider this as part of the result. And this is very nice, right? And then they have the assumption, preconditions. You have the means of verification. Means of verification, important assumptions. That it's kind of a if and then. Just like when you are doing a programming in computer, in IT. If and then so. That's how the assumption works. But basically also, it's very much related to our ToC. It's actually a derivation or adaptation of JICA practice right now using LF. But adapting or merging the idea of ToC, the causal pathway. So we could see here some kind of leveling off. But organizations differ in the way they do it. And here again, math science project, Madam of Education. There, overall goal, capacity of students in mathematics and science is upgraded. Upgraded. Let's look at this, upgraded. Is it very easy to identify indicators? Well, the object of this workshop is that we want to identify the strong link of ToC with the design of the evaluation. Because that's its purpose. That's purpose. How do we do that? Although we do not put our ToC model in our evaluation report, we use it actually, the basic tool that we do. Now here, if you have the goal, Capacity of students in mathematics and science is upgraded. If you look forward, for example, what could be the indicator that you would have? Upgrade.
Better grades.
Now we could not put all the indicators under the headings, right? We cannot do that. Project purpose. How about the output? Look at the activities. Now to me this articulation is looks sound. But I'm going to show you later on really very I would say a bit lousy articulations that they were doing in the past. And I am just using that not to put them down, not to put the organization down, but it's kind of a learning basis that we could do on how we see evolution or how it takes shape in evaluation, the leveling up of our knowledge. This one is PCM. PCM group. Please take note. You have the programming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically the 6 elements or segments. Please take note. And there are a lot that is actually a formulation of the particular institution. Very nicely done. There are a lot of things. But the issue is programming. After that, you have the evaluation that would feed back to this. What's the ToC? You cannot see, right? You cannot see because more of the project cycle management. This is a conventional project cycle by NGO, local livelihoods. Anyone from the local livelihoods? No. 2, 4, 6. Evaluation. Project cycle management. There's nothing about the ToC because the ToC is in there in the program design. You could use the ToC, but traditionally they do not look into that because it's only a new development that we're learning right now. That even evaluators or program managers who do their own thing, unknowingly there is that theory of change, ToC in our program. That should be the basis of our strategic planning. We do vision, mission, goal later on. But basically, if you look at how organizations work, look at the websites of all, even see change or act, your universities. What do you notice? You will see all vision, mission, goal, right? Goal, vision, mission. All of the organizations, corporation, private corporation, or public. If you don't have that kind of thing in your website, what do you think? People would think you're archaic. You're out of this world. Because that's part of it, vision, goal. But more often than not, organizations do not know that what they are doing is only rhetoric. That their goal, vision, and missions are unrealistic. Because they do not know how to look at how the change should be done. They just put it there as aesthetics because everyone does it. Well, it's a new thing even, our vision, mission, goal. Are you familiar with this? We have, when we do strategic plan. The big, hairy, audacious goal. Actually, we are doing this every day, all organizations. Big, hairy, audacious goal. And you know who formulated this? Even Microsoft, even Coke, and even FedEx, even Finland, I think, has this big hub. The vision, mission, goal in strategic planning. Formulated by 2 master students, sir. Stanford University, around 1995. Collins and Forrest. And we use it right now. They became rich because of this. Just like SWOT analysis, which is a very, very simple model, but even now we use it, although we do not understand, very simple. Who discovered SWOT analysis? Around 1976. Albert Humphrey, Stanford University master student. But this model makes sense, right? You have your vision, mission, goal. Actually, it's very much related to the ToC, what you want to achieve in your organization. But if you look at all the websites, all the vision, mission, goal of many institutions, those are made only as aesthetics, unrealistic, because it's not being looked into deeper as a way of doing your ToC. For example, I'm going to give you an example. One university, the university I belong to, says in one department that the goal or the vision, mission goal is something like this: to help improve or uplift the quality of the Filipino people, our nation. But that is an urban planning department. Please take note, look at that. You put it to uplift the quality of life of the Filipino people as the main goal. You are a department graduating people. How sure are you that you could achieve that goal? Uplift the quality of life. It will be very difficult, right? If you were the evaluator, how would you do that? So in fact, it feeds back on the soundness of our vision goal. Maybe we could just start with realistic, modest goals that we could achieve. Otherwise, it would end up like a funny thing, very much rhetoric. That's an issue of strategic planning. And understanding of this, actually, the ToC would make us a very competent strategic planner, policy makers, actually. I always believe in that. M&E people are the best policy makers, policy designers, I mean, program designers, because we know the ingredients. We know how to measure. Okay. This one is JICA project cycle M&E. Please take note. They have the ex-post, the post-implementation, not more often than not monitoring. Yeah. There are a lot of feedbacks. But still, 1, 2, we have 4. And they here. But this is a project cycle. You have the actually the engineering here, the finance stuff. Now this is the RF, a new practice by USA. I don't know if C changed also. Just like different.
Different one.
Look, is it a ToC model? Where is the ToC? These are very new. And I think Dennis put it, and Andres Subiri put it in the, I just downloaded it on the couple of days ago. You were the one who put it, right? The IEG. And you could download it. It's very nice about results framework. What is good thing here is they identify what particular level of outcomes or outputs they are responsible for. But talking about ToC, what is the ToC? The ToC is within here, but not very much clarified. I would rather start with strengthening the logic, doing it the model, and then transfer it into this RF. Because in this RF, you have already the indicators. In the theory of change model that I propose, that I'm subscribing to, I don't put yet the indicators in the model because I want it to be very simplistic, very easily understood from the resources up to the impact. If you complicate your model, it may create confusion. You could do it later on if the theory of change is already very, very clear to you. But doing outright, putting it here, it may mislead to me. This is very famous right now, very popular. You can look at TOR or some organization, they would look at your results framework, or they would require results framework instruction. This one from Robert Chambers, causal diagram. Please take a look. There are a lot of references there. How do we see the ToC here? There is causal pathway, but it's not very clear. You have, what's that? EES, it's related to the problem tree, right? By GIZ or GTZ or JICA, there are still many using this problem tree. How do you apply this in evaluation? You're evaluating a project or program. The context is this, madam. There is a program already running or maybe finished. Would you use problem tree? Context wise, you cannot. Because, yes ma'am.
You mean in the model of the theory of change?
Yeah, so.
Yes, absolutely I would use because the weak points of the evaluations, I say that are as you said that magic word realistic. The weak points are how to get those facts from real life, and that is the kind of chart how to chart the points where we would need get the facts.
Yes.
Before the intervention and after the intervention.
Analysis of the problem, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
causal.
Yeah, so absolutely yes. I would use.
Would use. JT said, JICA still use that. Yes, Mohammed.
Yes, but if the program is running,
Yeah.
it is difficult to
Yeah.
come with a problem tree. We
I
probably
would
have to
agree.
test
Yeah.
if they have conducted
Yeah.
a serious or a strong problem tree to understand what is the problem.
Yeah.
And then try and we may probably come with a model. Say, okay, you have identified lack of sufficient clean water.
Yeah.
We have, a model, which logic model that defines the problem and also the effects and consequences, and see if really we have identified the problem as it should be, because we may probably miss the whole point to understand the causalities.
Well, to me, I would rather use it when I'm doing strategic planning, doing a design of a program, like what you said. But if the program is, it's assumed that they have already gone through this, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they have done
Yes.
this already. They have done this. They should have done this if the program is already running, already designed. Please take note. How is the one difference with the theory of change expression is this? Please take note. That. There. The problem tree is done in a way, in a negative sense, I should say. Negative sense, right? Low productivity of workers. In the ToC, what do? Increase knowledge, right? That's a very basic difference that I could see when you apply problem tree in comparison with the result space. It's more on the negative essence, right? The negative. Whereas the result space approach is, okay, increase of knowledge, increase of access, improve, so on. That's one difference.
But here the difficulty is that we may see the symptoms of the
Yeah.
problems, not really the effects.
Yes.
There are symptoms that really
Yes.
completely hide the problems.
That's right. This one is a ToC, a sample of ToC model. ToC model, I did not put there. The ToC is within here. But this is a ToC model. So you have articulated it. That's why the logic model. Theory logic model. It's another term, right? Okay. And you have the increased healthcare efficiency. Improve health status. What do you think about this? You have the assumptions. One thing that I mentioned a while ago. Let's see the assumption, for example. Information on health status and system is required for informed decision making. Of course. It's already clear now. My point here is, why do we have to put it there? It just complicates the model. Information on health status and system is required for informed decision making. Those who are putting assumptions like this would say, there is a segment or a stage in your evaluation that you test this. Where? Have you encountered or experienced something like that? Okay, when do you test this? Because it's carried. The theory is that, encompassing all our assumptions. I'm inclined not to use any more assumptions in a theory of change model because it complicates just kind of aesthetics or adornment. Health is a community issue and communities will form participate to resolve healthcare problems. That's right. That's right. But what we are after is, when you use the resources, what would be the outcomes that you want to see to breathe through to the impact? That's the theory that you want to do. Would it all? Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are some also institutions that use risks, not
Yes.
the real assumptions.
Yes, that's
but
true.
risks.
Yeah. Then that is a progressing practice. Risk management. How long you are practicing risk management? What's the difference with risk and assumption, ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
Well, by the risk management, we are charting those problems we
Yes,
have,
problem.
have to get, have to improve this direction. So
Yes.
it's simple.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. What do you think is risk? Different from the assumption. What is assumption or what is risk in your practice? In your field?
Well, assumption, it's not. I don't favor that conception, not at all, because it is something. Maybe it might be some policy or some wishes or something like that, but it is not describing the problem we have in our hands when we are beginning our intervention.
Thank you. Nice. Yes, ma'am. You were raising your hand a while.
Yes, we've looked at risks and assumptions both. I think DFID is a donor that also puts down, the mandate that we have to put it in the LogFrame. But for risks, we also look at the likelihood, so medium, high, and low. So we also categorize how every year the risks are changing and what is the likelihood of the impact being taken by the risks. So we're looking at that as well. But the assumptions are basically put down. Again, I agree, more as an adornment. But risks are something that we tend to really take into account, and we have a problem solution a section as well as that, just to address the risk. How do we address the risk as well?
Okay, thank you. Some people I asked, what do you say? You could distinguish the two by thinking like this. Assumptions are things or the element that should be there, whereas the risks are the element that should not be there. This risk should not be there. It should be that should not be encountered by this project. But the assumption that people should have cooperative inclination toward this should be there. That's just the assumption. That the local government units would cooperate, that's an assumption too. Whereas risk would be the presence of supernatural calamities should not be there, otherwise you are dead, including your program. That's the risk.
In this model, outputs of input as part of intended results.
Where is that? The outputs, right?
Outputs are part of it. Then the arrow down here, lower down,
Yes.
starts down. Intended result starts from outputs.
Oh, yeah, that's right. This is the thing. It's good that you observed it. In the practice of results-based management, adopting results-based management, this is very, very confusing. You still consider outputs as results. That would complicate it. Because in evaluation, you also get indicators for outputs, right? You also get indicators for the effects and the outcomes. And then, where is that? I think that's another slide. In the results-based management principle, we say we are results-oriented, right? Other than output-oriented. Because output-oriented is just like doing things, making yourself appear busy. That's why we are results-oriented or outcome-based thinker. Now, if you put output, that would contradict our philosophy in results-based management. We are not any more results-based individuals because we focus on the output. Yes.
Yeah, looking at this, which means if I have my LogFrame, I can be able to develop the theory of change. It can inform it. Because the LogFrame also has assumptions, it has the outputs and the outcomes, maybe some few outcomes. But in case I have a good LogFrame, which then with the result in mind, I can be able to write the theory of change. I don't know what you think.
Could you repeat that again?
If I have a LogFrame,
You have the LogFrame existing of a particular project.
can I use it to write the theory of change?
Why not? You get idea from it. You want to recreate the theory of change and make a theory of change model. Yeah, you could make it as a basis reference, your existing LogFrame. But of course, you have to review the context of your program, the strategic planning that you do, the goal, the targets that you set. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, it of course depends on the size of the intervention, but I think information and knowledge are crucial, and sometimes I feel that there is a lack, or some of our plannings depend on our lack of information or knowledge. For example, I think sometimes the assumptions are things that we take for granted, or that are our assumptions when planning at the desk, but are not probably the assumptions of all the people that are taking part in the same project. Not only the, so to say, beneficiaries, but also the people, the managers, no other stakeholders. So sometimes I think that there are some kind of different, even theories of what we think that this project is for, that have an impact on how things go on after.
Yes.
And also, thinking about the results, I think very often we don't have enough information so as to describe the expected results. And there are not very good sources where you can go and look for them. So if you want to be realistic, you say, well, this is what I can achieve with my means, and this is what I would like to contribute to. But it's really difficult for me to say what is really going to happen,
Yes.
because there are many other stakeholders, but also because the information, this quality information is not always there. So even if it helps you to go a step further and to think about the results, sometimes if you really want to be honest and realistic, you need this previous step of the outputs, because that is what you can really explain.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. I could get your point. The information, there should be the participatory element among the stakeholders, participators, so that you agree on what to measure, right? And then the output, I'm not saying that you do away with the output. The issue that I'm talking about is that in terms of categorization, we have put the premise that we are results-based oriented. We are results-oriented. But still, we consider outputs as part of the result. That's the point. Yes, yes.
I think if we would like to understand more this differentiation between outputs and outcomes, when it comes to the outcomes, it's the use of the outputs. Because the outputs themselves, if they are not used, they cannot really lead to outcomes. You have an hospital, so if the hospital facilities are used, then you assume that you have better, health. But here, in the outcomes, all of them are outputs in my own sense.
Yes, it's an issue of articulation. It's very well done, very nicely done. But if you look at the articulation, there are some contradictions.